I want this channel to be a friend of Blue Beetle. Considering DC and WB don't seem to want or not seem to be promoting the film, someone better. It's a shame it's a platform of just around 60 or 70 views a day, but someone's got to take up the task. I'm a DC fan. I'm here for all DC, and I don't know if this is a good movie, a bad movie, a boring movie. I do know this is going to be a really pure Latinx movie. You're going to be seeing a lot of Latinx language spoken in this movie, and we're going to get to read all of that in subtitles. I think that's very important and very beautiful. I respect the fact that the director and all of these actors have worked really hard. It's going to be a movie about illegal immigration. It's going to have a lot of, social commentary in it. That may upset some people. That may make some people very excited about this movie. But what does James Gunn actually mean when he says it's the first DC Universe character, but it's not the first DC Universe movie? Some people are confused by this. Some people are trying to stir the pot and narrative and say this is typical James Gunn confusing people. It's not confusing at all. He's the first DC Universe character because Zolo will be involved in James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DC Universe. But James Gunn had nothing to do with the making of Blue Beetle. And this is what he means when he says it's the first DC Universe character, but not the first DC Universe movie. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I really want to help promote this movie. I don't know if this movie is going to flop. I know this movie isn't going to make $1 billion or $2 billion. I mean, funnier things have happened, right? But I've always liked the character of Blue Beetle. Now, as usual, I will review the movie for you with my straight shooting qualities. I will be honest. If I love it, I love it. If I hate it, I hate it. If I think it's mid, I'll say it's mid. We'll have to wait and see until we actually see the movie. But DC is desperate for a win right now. So I'm always a supporter of DC movies. It gave me no pleasure that the Flash movie bombed as much as it did. But I always told you that this was a movie that could land one way or the other. It could be a big hit, or it could be an absolute disaster. I saw the unfinished test screening. I had no idea of the quality of the VFX or lack thereof before it was released. I was stunned that it literally was a sequel to Justice League. I was stunned that the VFX was unfinished and they didn't want to pay to finish the VFX. But the Flash movie was always a movie built on toxicity. So let's focus on the positive today. Let's try and give you lots of reasons why you would want to see the Blue Beetle movie. So first of all, I have an article here. I haven't read it, I haven't proofread it, so this is going to be exciting. Apparently it has a big spoiler about the movie. So if you don't want to know any spoilers about the Blue Beetle movie, go away. But if you're interested, stay with me and let's see what the DC Direct have to say about Blue Beetle. Let's go. Let's clear my throat. Right, let's go. DC's Blue Beetle movie just spoiled a major character death by Aaron Mayer Eclampfel, or whatever that is. I wish I didn't bother reading that name. I'm sorry, my friend. I'm sure you're a great little journalist. An important character is confirmed to die in DC's Blue Beetle, and it's quite tragic. Blue Beetle is filled with interesting characters led by Xolo Maradaruya. I can't say that name either, but he's the lead. We call him Xolo. He's from Cobra Kai, of course. So he's Xolo's titular hero, aka Jamie Reyes. Aside from the main hero, the movie's core cast includes the Reyes family. The exact plot details of the film are still shrouded in secrecy, but trailers have confirmed that it will highlight the hero's origin story, his clash with a dangerous villain, and his bond with his family. So let's take a look. In the latest issue of Movie Maker magazine, Blue Beetle director Angel Manuel Soto talked about Damien Aca's character, Alberto Reyes, aka Jamie Reyes' father, and his apparent death in the film. So basically, Jamie Reyes' father is going to die in this movie. I suppose it's a similar thing to Man of Steel, but I suppose everyone knows that Jonathan Kent mainly dies in the origin story. Now, in certain versions of the comics, he's still alive today, Jonathan Kent. That's interesting. So let's give this a read. When movie makers Joshua and Shinaz reflected on his dad's death while also talking about how Blue Beetle referenced Macario, it prompted Soto to note that Alberto Reyes' death scene is close to his heart. So we're going to see Jamie's father die in this movie. No way I'm getting goosebumps. As you say that scene is close to my heart. I have not gone through the hardship that you went through. I can only imagine, and just imagining it is heartbreaking for me, but your reaction was exactly what we were trying to achieve. Brilliant. Jamie Reyes actor Zolo Maradona chimed in, pointing out that Albert Reyes' death scene was his favourite part in the movie. I'm glad they're not pushing this as a bright, funny, light movie, and they're talking about a compelling moment in the movie. Damien Acaza, the actor who plays my father, was so generous and wise and calm. I remember thinking it felt ethereal for Jamie to see his father, but it was just his soul. It wasn't his body. Can I just say something as well? I am dyslexic. Very hard for me to read stuff. I do my best, so please bear with me. Maradona continued by reminding everyone to hug their parents if they are still alive. Well, that hits hard for me because both my parents have been dead for the past 2 to 3 years. Very sad when you lose your parents. You look at their pictures and you think, wow, I'm never going to get to speak to you again for the rest of my life. And we argue with our parents, we can disrespect them, and all those memories come back and that guilt festers. Best to remember the good times. Jamie didn't have a chance to say goodbye to his father. I want people to understand that if you have your parents, just hug them, because you never know when it's the last time. Circling back to Soto, the Blue Beetle director opened up on how he was able to ground the fantastic elements of the movie in reality. We gave everything to make something special and emotional that connects with audiences, and what you just shared is probably the best compliment I can get. Let's tell stories that help us heal. I could care less about anything else. You just reinforced the reason I want to do this. But, my friend, yes, you're a great director, you want to tell real stories, but at the end of the day, that's great. I want to see compelling storylines like someone losing their parent or parents, but I want to see excitement in my DC comic book movies as well. It's all about variety. Soto also noted how Blue Beetle's exploration of the afterlife is inspired by the Mexican movie Macario. Well, that's very interesting. So they're exploring the afterlife as well. You know, there's deep belief in the Latinx culture as well. Very interesting. Soto first talked about his faith, confirming that he practices a religion called Yoruba. I've never heard of it. I'd love to know more about it, though. I'm always interested in the cosmopolitan world that we live in. I practice a religion called Yoruba. It's an Afro-Cuban religion that has roots in Christianity, but it's mainly an African religion. It's something that I grew up with by proxy from my mother. I love reading about science and metaphysics and spirituality. I think it's, I've lost it. Where are we? Yes, spirituality. So I think it's something that's super important to explore on your own. I love learning about all religions and faiths and all different denominations. So basically, he likes to learn about different cultures. Blue Beetle explores the afterlife with it being inspired in part by Gabriel Figueroa's shots in Macario. For those unaware, Macario is considered one of the best Mexican films ever made. The movie was nominated for the Best Foreign Language Film at the 1961 Academy Awards, and it revolves around the titular character who takes a journey to the afterlife. In Macario, there was a scene where the titular character encounters Death's cavern filled with thousands of candles. Soto referenced that specific scene when Jamie visits Alberto in the afterlife. The magic realism of the Macario stuck with me when we were developing that scene. I was like, man, why don't we pay homage to the movie that built us? Why don't we pay homage to the movie that we can say is Latin cinema? Macario's magic realism is beautiful and it's smart, like it is in Latin literature, and it's ours. Soto also worked with Blue Beetle's VFX department and production designer to pay tribute to Macario's cascading candles. There is no logic in the imagination, except we construct things based on what we have experienced. Yes, I'm afraid that is something that New Hollywood like. They don't like imagination, they like realism more, and that's why they're on the verge of receivership. Anyway, why Blue Beetle's major death is necessary. It is quite unfortunate that Blue Beetle's major death has been spoiled early, but director Angel Manuel Soto and Xolo Maraduna's comments indicate that the demise of Jamie Reyes' father is integral to the movie's story. Sorry about that, pop-ups. While it's the cliche to experience the death of a loved one before becoming a loved one, Blue Beetle's handling of this specific storyline has the chance to be unique, mainly due to the exploration of the afterlife. Based on the trailer, it looks like Alberto Reyes was still alive when Jamie found the scarab. That said, it's possible that the character's death will happen sometime after Jamie becomes a superhero. As a result, Jamie Reyes' father's death could be used as a way to propel the titular character's journey to an eventual hero who understands the responsibility of being one. Meanwhile, Blue Beetle is set to be the next DC movie to premiere in theaters, but it is unknown if the movie is connected to the DCEU or the new DCU. It is not unknown. It is the first DC Universe character, but it's not a DC Universe movie. So yes, it's a DCEU movie, but it's the first DC Universe character. Get it? How many more times? Despite that, DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn revealed that the titular hero is the first superhero of the DCU. So why are you saying it's unclear then? While the movie's DCU status is up for debate, fans can check Blue Beetle out when it premieres in theaters on August 18th. Basically, everyone, there's no debate. It's a DCEU movie, but Xolo's Blue Beetle, Jamie Reyes, will be the first DC Universe character. Do you get it? Now, as I said, I didn't proofread that article. Now I'm actually more excited about this movie. The Latinx exploration of the afterlife of Jamie losing his character may be very fundamental. It may be something that audiences take to their hearts, and I hope so. Obviously, the Latinx, version of the afterlife is probably not something that's going to tell audiences, yeah, got to see this movie. And there lies the problem. So, as I say, most directors today are not interested in imagination and fantasy and escapism. They're interested in their own mindset, in their own beliefs, and there lies the problem. But I haven't seen this movie. It's clear it's going to have, it's very Latinx based, the passionate bunch of people, the Latinx community. And I'm glad that this is really the first Latinx superhero movie. And that's exciting. And that shouldn't be off-putting to anyone. It's intriguing to me. It's interesting to me. So If I was advising you, if you came into me down the pub and you said, Mick, shall I watch this movie? I'm a DC fan. Absolutely, there's no reason you shouldn't see this fan. But I am going to be honest, as I was when I reacted on this platform here at Movies TV Mad to this trailer. I didn't think it was a bad trailer. It just didn't do anything for me. Yes, I'm going to be honest. It felt like a very mid trailer. The costume looked okay. The VFX didn't look bad at all. So we will see how this movie does. As I said about The Flash, it's very, very difficult. I think this film will look good. I am concerned about people's interest level of this movie. But for me, if a movie's good, it's good. The problem with the community of people going to cinemas today, they're either going to frame a movie as the bestest ever or the worstest, loadest shit they've ever had. Someone said to me the other day, Batman versus Superman, is it the best ever or the worst ever? Neither. But it's a movie I really admire and adore. It's great. It's not the best CBM I've ever seen, and it's not the worst CBM I've ever seen. I think it's one of the best CBMs I've ever seen, but I don't need something to be the best movie ever made. And unfortunately, we live in an era where people are obsessed with framing movies in a certain context. The problem is, we're in an era of entertainment today where you're never going to see the bestest ever, but people will hold things up. People were defending the Flash movie as the bestest ever. They're shouting against all hope at people who are saying bad things about the Flash movie. But it's all in the box office. You know, the general audience rejected the Flash movie. The general audience rejected Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And it's as simple as that. Now, if you personally enjoyed those movies, I'm happy for you. There's movies that have been very successful that I haven't enjoyed, and that's okay. But when a general audience rejects a movie, there's not very much you can do about it. There's been movies I've loved, you know, Man of Steel, that was rejected by the general audience mostly. I mean, 650 obviously is okay, but a Superman movie should be getting more of the general audience into it and loving it, as far as I'm concerned, because Superman is a wonderful character. And Man of Steel is a great movie, but it wasn't for everyone because it was polarizing. And that's another question to look at here and now and today about Blue Beetle. Is this going to be a polarizing movie? I personally have had enough of polarizing movies. I want to see great entertainment. If you want some realism in it, if you want to tell a deep story, that's okay. But if you just want to wind people up and say that your belief system is better than that other person, you're just going to hurt that other person and they're going to reject your movie. After all, you are in a consumer business. You have to create a sellable commodity. And that's the problem with entertainment and life today. People will argue about beer, fruit pastels, what is the best, what is the worst. This is the society we live in. We live in a very political, polarizing society. Nobody's political opinion is universally right. All I know is, if I see someone falling on the floor on the street, I'm going to give them my hand. That is my politics. I believe we should help people that are down on their knees financially. If we've got a lot, we should hand some over to people who don't. Whether they're lazy gits, whether they're hard workers, whatever. People don't believe that. That's not I'm not going to say that's universally right. I think it is universally right. But I'm not going to do you down if you don't believe that. I want politics to hell out of entertainment. It's okay to make a movie about apartheid in South Africa, right? Statements of fact. We know that happened. I don't mind seeing a movie about the assassination of John F. Kennedy and for someone to give me evidence about what really happened. Because, you know, Oliver Stone's JFK really taught me something. But what I'm really excited about in terms of Blue Beetle is the terms that I'm going to learn something about the Latinx culture as well. Now, I don't expect this to drive audience levels up. And that's the problem. I'm a fan of our multicultural society. I think I want to learn about the Latinx afterlife, about this religion. But ultimately, I want to see an exciting superhero movie. I'm going to make a statement, even though I haven't seen it. But journalists have spoke to me. They have seen the movie, and they say that it is an exciting movie, but there's a lot of depth within the movie as well. But a movie like this, that's so Latinx, should really drive up Latinx audiences to go to cinemas. The extreme left, Hollywood, believe that people should see themselves on the screen. Here's the thing. If that's the case, why didn't gay men go to see Bros in their droves? It flopped. Let's look at Top Gun Maverick. This is a movie that made $2 billion about a very attractive, sexy to gay men, sexy to straight women, straight white male, being cool in a fighter jet, looking cool, and it made $2 billion. For a movie to make $2 billion, you need a really diverse audience. That means that straight white people went to see it, straight males went to see it, straight women went to see it, straight black males went to saw it, straight brown people went to see it, straight Asian people went to see it, the transgender community went to see it, and the gay community went to see it. Wait a minute, you mean this diverse group of people made a movie focusing on a near 60-year-old straight white male? Why? Because that is the natural order of things. Even when you're gay or trans, you will go and see a really attractive, compelling character doing cool things. Because it's the natural order of things. And what Hollywood has attempted to do is to reverse engineer that. Create some kind of, oasis of inclusion. And as I say, it's brought the industry to its knees because they've gone very aggressive, authoritarianly aggressive in doing that. And that's the problem. You can't change the natural order of things. You can have, Asian leads, you can have trans leads, you can do all of that. But it will never be the norm because not even the people who represent those communities will come in their droves to watch those demographics. Now that may be hard for you to hear, but it's the truth because we can see the box office and the reactions to those movies. Of course, if you make a great movie, it doesn't matter what demographic you're getting to represent those characters. And that's the real shame here. We're getting inclusive content, but actually the movies and the television shows are actually boring. I think the first female Doctor played by Jodie Whittaker is a great example of this. I don't agree with people that say, Doctor Who flopped, the 13th Doctor flopped because she was a woman. No, that is not the reason. It was because her characterization and the characterizations of her supporting characters, the companions, were very bland and uninteresting. It was a very bland show. We came back to the Doctor Who world. We were brought back kicking and screaming with Doctor Who in the 21st century from RTD's era from 2005 to 2009 and then Moffat's excellent era. But it was the pacing was great. The characterizations were, exciting. But that's not what the first female Doctor was. So there's no point being inclusive with boring content. Why do they make inclusive stuff so boring and so bad and so uninteresting? It's very rare when we have inclusive leads that we actually see good content. And that's always been mysterious to me. Now, what does this have to do with Blue Beetle? Well, it has everything. Because as I say, this is something that, the director and the Latinx cast and crew are very proud of. Quite right too. Representation does matter. But it only matters if you're making great to good content. It's no good having great Latinx inclusion and representation if at the end of the day the movie's shit, bland and boring. So I hope it's great. It's about family. It's about Jamie Reyes, this young boy. Everyone loved Zolo in Cobra Kai. I love Zolo. I think he's a great lad. And I think he's putting out lots of positive messaging. He's not attacking anyone. I like him. But again, the marketing material is going to be very, very interesting here. Because if they sit in the marketing, like they've just done in that interview, and go on and about realism and a lack of imagination and science over escapism, then they're going to have a problem. You have to sell something to look, you're not going to sell a movie to the general audience about talking about a Mexican religion, Mexican African religion. Nobody cares. I'm sorry. It's piqued my interest. I'm intrigued, don't get me wrong, but that's me. But if you want to get the TikTok generation watching cinema, because that's something Hollywood are utterly confused about. Why are kids on TikTok and why aren't they at the multiplex? You know, all the CEOs around Hollywood are scratching their heads. What do we have to do to get them at the multiplex? Well, you have to speak their language. And today's Hollywood doesn't speak their language. Ghostbusters spoke my generation's language. Gremlins, the Goonies, you know, the Arnie era, the Sly Stallone era, even the Van Damme era, right? I'm not saying that's the kind of stuff that will speak to a jaded TikTok generation, but the problem is the people working in Hollywood today are activists. They're not filmmakers, and there's not very young creatives out there. And that's the problem. And if you don't have like young people making movies who understand the TikTok generation, who understand Gen Z, then your movie theaters, your multiplexes will remain empty. And this is the problem with Hollywood today. They've really been hit with a lot of bombs in the box office because, you know, Gen Z, the TikTok generation didn't go to see the Flash movie. Why? Because they knew what it was going to be. They're tired. They're worn down by creative bankruptcy. You're not exciting the TikTok generation. That's the problem. You need variety. You need to make great content. And I hope the Blue Beetle movie is something we can all be proud of and something that puts DC back on the map. The problem is DC probably won't be back on the map until we see next year's Joker Folie à Deux. Because the TikTok generation are utterly interested in a maniac that kills people, in Harley Quinn. They're interested in that because I see them posting about it on TikTok all the time. And the TikTok generation are not going to be that interested necessarily in the Latinx religion and community, but we know they like Zola. So that may drag them to the movie theatre. But as I said on the top of the show, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a box office analyst or an expert. I don't know how this movie is going to do. I expect it to make around from just under 400 million to 600 million. 600 million would be an amazing success for the movie. But it could also be a bomb like The Flash. But there's something in the back of my mind, and I don't know why, that kind of tells me that's not going to happen. Because Blue Beetle is in a similar position, in fact, in exactly the same position as Aquaman was as it came straight after Justice League. Everyone expected Aquaman to flop. They said Jason Momoa, Amber Heard leading a movie. How the fuck is that going to work? Well, it was a great movie. People normally judge you on your movie. Everyone said Justice League flopped because nobody liked Batman versus Superman. No, lots of people liked BVS, but the loudmouths on Twitter made it look like that nobody did. But 850 million or 650 million for Man of Steel and 850 for BVS isn't, you know, that's not telling me that nobody liked those movies. They were two polarizing movies. Okay, I get that. So Blue Beetle are in the same position that Aquaman was after Justice League. After all, in my eyes, the Flash movie is Justice League 2 anyway. And it wasn't a finished movie. It's as simple as that. It didn't respect the Flashpoint graphic novel. But here's another problem. The Flashpoint graphic novel is flawed. what Barry Allen does in that story is flawed. And there's not a lot of science fact in it. In fact, the way he changes things and all of that doesn't make much sense. So I think they should have saw that from the very beginning, that even the original story from Flashpoint, although it's a great story and we see some compelling and some great things in it, the problem is the story has been very flawed. So yes, Blue Beetle is in a very interesting position and it's holding DC on its shoulders. So let me take a deep breath and say that I will continue to support Blue Beetle as a content creator until I see it. If I see it and I love it, I will carry on waving that Blue Beetle scarab until my last days. If it's rubbish, I'm going to have to tell you it's rubbish. But let me be clear again, there is no agenda on this channel. I'm not here for Snyder, I'm not here for Reeves, I'm not here for Phillips, I'm not here for anyone. I'm here for everyone. If you've worked for DC, you've been involved with DC, you're part of the DC family. When David Corenswet was announced as Superman Clark Kent, I tagged him on Twitter and said, welcome to the family. Anyone who's now involved in DC or has been involved in DC is welcome to this family. I'm not here for any director or actor. I'm here for DC.